Hey everybody, Kate Podcasts here. Remember, you can support the show at groupofshrike.net to get access to our growing collection of bonus episodes on non-Deltarune topics. Thanks for listening. I got my arm in a sling because as you know, I dislocated it on Friday, which is a thing that happens to me every few years, I guess. Well, not my arm, I dislocated my shoulder, but I'm all slinged up.
Yeah.
Which is great because it means everybody has to be really nice to me, because I'm visibly injured.
I do like when everyone really nice to Kate.
Yeah. You guys,
it seems right to me.
Yeah, exactly. You have to be really nice in the YouTube comments because an injured person is going to be reading it. Although, actually, by the time this episode releases on Wednesday, I should be out of the sling.
Yeah. Well, you're injured recording it, you know.
Exactly. I'm on the. You gotta sort of adjust your performance metrics based on that. It's like when a baseball player is hurt and just like
you can be injured for the playoffs and be out of the sling for the accepting the ring or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. I'm gritting it out. I got this is and
this is definitely going to be a championship level podcast. I'm exactly as prepared for this as I was planning to be when we scheduled this.
Yeah, and so, you said you wanted to talk about Earthbound, and I thought, oh, that's great. It's been like 10 years since I played Earthbound, and so I'll go ahead and replay it. And then I spent the last month, I played a bunch of Pocopia, as I talked about before. I replayed all of Koru Observer. I watched a bunch of movies, and
ooh, tell me about some movies.
I just watched First Reformed a couple days ago, Saturday night. That's a really good movie.
So I've heard.
It's very okay. You kind of you have to. Schrader, I think, is probably pretty polarizing. I mean, I liked Mishima, A Life in Four Chapters, very, very much. I think you kind of got to pick up what he's putting down. Let me tell you, it's pretty bleak. I mean, there's some darkly comic moments, but it's a pretty bleak look at like America in the 21st century. And sorry about the Discord bloop that just got put in there. I'm gonna go ahead and mute that. I mean, I thought Ethan Hawke was tremendous in it, and it's I don't know, if you're someone who, like me, has sort of been struggling with like what's religion's role in the crises of modern life, and feeling alienated from that, I think it's a very good film to watch.
Sounds like it. I showed a friend Moonrise Kingdom last night.
Man.
Is just an excellent movie.
I just rewatched that because I just rewatched that last week because I got the Wes Anderson. I got the Wes Anderson box set for Christmas, which is a tremendous gift. But yeah, it's great. I feel like I actually underrated it because it had been so long since I watched it, and I guess I thought it was a little saccharine compared to other Anderson films, but it's got so much. It's so beautiful. It's got so much beauty in it.
It's so lovely. I don't know. I feel so much for all the characters in that movie.
And I think it's one of those peak things where it's like people think Anderson's being ironic, right? And it's like, I think it's actually that there's
he's like so sincere it hurts me to my bones.
Yeah, and when you have, well, actually, I feel like this is a good way to sort of get into our subject, because I feel like when you look at the world through the eyes of children, it like dials up the emotional realness of what you're doing. And I think that's like a really core part of Undertale, especially, Deltarune too, but I think it's a really, I think Undertale and Deltarune are both different flavors of coming of age story. But, by virtue of like being a story about children, you like dial up the emotions because although the concerns of kids may feel silly or feel saccharine, they're also like when you're young and when you're having them, they're like the most fucking serious thing imaginable. And that's what's so beautiful about Moonrise Kingdom is it's like the adventure that they're on, it feels like a folly to the adult perspective, but it's the most important thing in the world that they could possibly be doing.
Yeah. You have to remember when you're thinking about the experiences of people who have not lived as much life as you, that like it's really possible that whatever emotion they're feeling in the moment is the strongest emotion they've literally ever felt. Um, that's what being young is like.
Yeah.
Um, so
And it's like,
Earthbound.
yeah, I mean, yeah. So Earthbound. So you did just so I didn't, and so I am going to be playing the role in this episode of someone who hasn't played Earthbound in a while, and hopefully, listener, you also need a bit of a refresher because I'm going to be asking probably stupid questions. So I'm going to be the idiot on this episode of the podcast.
Method acting the role, you could say.
Yes, exactly. Call me Daniel Day-Lewis in the role
Well, you
of a
went there and
lifetime.
not Jared Leto.
Well, okay, yeah, because for obvious reasons. I will say I watched Blade Runner 2049 a few months ago for the first time. And like if you want a guy who like plays a mega creep cult leader, Jared Leto's so good at that. That was a perfect.
Yeah, he's really good at being a huge creep.
Yeah, that was great casting for Jared Leto. No, but I have a series of questions that I was thinking about, ahead of this recording that I want to ask you. And so, first off, just to keep it on the survey program topic, it's interesting. Okay, it's interesting to think about because the order that people play things. I played Earthbound before I ever played Undertale, but these days I bet a bunch more people are playing Undertale first. So
That's me. I didn't play Earthbound until a couple months ago.
That's a great question. All right, so I was wondering about that. And so, what's your experience with Earthbound as someone who has played a bunch of games that were influenced by Earthbound first?
That I think it's the perfect question to ask because when I play it, I just keep thinking, "Oh man, I really get why this affected so many like aspiring artists." It is such a like uh I don't know, like narratively and aesthetically affecting experience, like consistently, like hitting over and over all throughout, but it's so like sparing with everything that it gives you. There's not like it's a I don't like a 30-hour game. There's not that much like dialogue in it that you might expect for a game that long. Especially surprising, like the main party does not have that much dialogue between each other, and you kind of have to infer a lot from I don't know, the small things that you do get. But there are so many just like really unique experiences of it that you play it and you go, oh, I can imagine so easily the very like maximalist full version of this that isn't being quite as economic about it.
And
But I think that the reality is that the very economic version of it that you get in Earthbound, I think, is sort of really honest to that experience of like kids on an adventure, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of stuff that kind of like just happens and you take it in.
And you know what? First off, it's similar to Moonrise Kingdom in that way because so much is communicated with these really long stretches of very little dialogue in that film, right? In the
yeah.
But also, I do think that is one of the biggest things that sets Toby Fox apart from a bunch of other RPG developers is the economy, right? Is the spare is as you said, the fact that it's sparing, the fact that Undertale and Deltarune don't go out of their way to over explain everything and leave you to read between the lines and trust its own writing to deliver a powerful punch of characterization without endless cutscenes, without, hundreds of thousands of lines of dialogue.
Yeah. I mean, shoot, I had a thought that came to me in the middle of that and it escaped me. Let me try to reformulate it. Fuck, I lost it. Oh no, I'm back on it. I think another thing that struck me that I didn't really know going into it, because truth be told, I did not really know that much about Earthbound. I didn't realize that the game is basically, it's not fully linear. You can choose the order you do some things in, but like there's no side quests, really. There's not really side stories either. You just kind of go. Like, you go from the start to the finish of the game, which is quite different from a lot of uh, other RPGs of its time and since then. And it's something that I kind of appreciated about it. It always has a sense of forward momentum in a way that I think works really well for like a kid's adventure. And another thing I took away from it, and this is going much more granular, having played so many games that were inspired by it, I am shocked that rolling HP, like the one real time combat mechanic of this game, it hasn't been ripped off by like every RPG that has come out since Earthbound, because it's perfect.
And so for those who haven't played it, tell me, talk about what rolling HP is and why you think it's good.
The game is fully turn-based, except for the fact that your hit points go up and down over time when you take damage or heal. And it is so perfect, in my opinion, as a pacing mechanic, because it's not a timing mini game. It's not trying to ask you to do anything outside of the systems as presented. It's just telling you took a big hit. If you play a suboptimal turn really fast, you could end the battle before you take all of this damage. Or it tells you have just cast a big healing, ability to get all of your party back up to health. Take a breather while it fills back up. Take a minute to think and sit with this, and don't just mindlessly push forward through the experience. And it's awesome. It works consistently through the entire game. I think it's great.
And so I find that interesting. And so when you treat it as a time for reflection, because I think the most common gamer brain reaction to being asked to wait to heal would be frustration. And so, do you think that it's a bit of audience hostility against that kind of thinking, or what makes it zen for you and not frustrating?
It's just like, I think part of it is because so much of the game, the numbers are going up and down in relatively small increments. So when there is like a big enough, like dramatic like healing where everyone has to get back up from really low to really high, usually it is a moment where you want to be thinking, because it's kind of a simple RPG in some ways. It's not like some games that you play where you have like this enormous like strategic tableau of like a dozen different options that are like all equally viable. Through most of the game, you're kind of using one or two abilities on each character that kind of change as you go from area to area. But it is really well executed as the thing that I like so much from RPGs, which is just you've got a number that goes down and up, and you're trying to keep the number up while managing a bunch of other numbers. And so it feels natural for me to stop and think in a moment when I'm, coming back to my healthy state after having nearly died. That's just my perspective on it, though, and I also know I'm a freak in the way that I play video games.
But then, of course, there's the inverse, right, where the health is ticking down and you're in a hurry. How does, that, and I definitely, now that one is more relatable to me. I definitely am like, oh, fuck, that's really fun to know that you can think fast and, like, hurry your way out of dying.
Yeah, you can, sometimes it's just, I need one of them to cast a healing spell, or, use PSI. I'm going to get to magic and psychic powers later, but you have one of them cast a healing spell, and then everybody else just does a basic attack because it's the fastest turn you can do, and it will keep the party alive. It's stuff like that. Like I don't know, it just all pushes towards this like interesting narrativizing of the combat that really is like always singing for me. It's really great.
I do find most I've talked about this before. I'm sure listeners are tired of it because I know most of my listeners like RPGs a lot more than me. That I do find most turn-based RPGs to be quite boring. And you know, Earthbound, that mechanic is sort of the only, like, it's sort of the main twist on it, right? I don't want to bring in Mother 3 just yet, but Mother 3 does try something a little more like Paper Mario action RPG-y, to combat that. But Earthbound doesn't. And so what are the ways that Earthbound makes combat feel distinct across the course of the game? Like, how does it feel the same? Does it feel different over the course of it?
I think part of what it is that combat is very I'm trying to think of the best way to put it. It's very swingy and kind of slapstick.
Yeah.
There are a bunch of enemies that kind of have like a hidden mechanic that if you like blunder into it, you can just like instantly kill your whole party, which is very funny, but might frustrate some people. Or just like I don't know. When you get towards the end of the game, there are some enemies where it's just like some of the time they're going to do an AoE attack that has about a 1 in 4 chance of instantly killing each of your party members, which I think reflects the state of the early game, which is just like the game is very, like even right from the start, it's like, oh, I'm very much under threat, so the combat always feels very like I don't know, like thrilling, I guess.
I recall the beginning. I recall the beginning being really difficult. The start, yeah.
This. I feel like I should talk a little bit about the way that I played it, because I think that the way that I play RPGs is a little unusual. I think I've talked about this with you a bit before, but I hear people when they say that they don't like grinding in RPGs, but this is a problem that I have solved by not doing it. And in fact, I do the opposite. I skip as many fights as I can in RPGs, and I put my foot all the way down on the gas pedal, and I punch forward as hard as I can, and I wait for the game to tell me that I have to slow down. So, like, I just, like, walked right up to the first boss of the game and fought him after doing, I think, less than half a dozen other fights, and won. And my girlfriend watched that and went, "What the fuck was that?" I think that I ended the game somewhere around 20 levels under-leveled for what the guide she was using said I was supposed to be at. And Earthbound is a really great game to play that way, in my opinion.
That's something that I've been trying to get better at, and it's like from watching, from thinking about like speedrunners, under-leveling, being more comfortable at low HP when playing games is something I've been trying really hard to do. When I was playing the Thousand Year Door remake, I was actually for the first time like trying the abilities that rely on you being at low health to do extra damage, and living on the precarity of that edge. Now, of course, it's a little. Here's the thing: it's a little easier when you have when you're on an emulator, and it's easier to save. You're not losing quite so much when you die.
Yeah, and that's another interesting thing about Earthbound that is also kind of that game's anti-grinding mechanic, which is that dying doesn't make you reload a save. You just wake up with a bunch of your money gone, but you have all the XP that you got. So, like, any time that I would have spent grinding is kind of made up for by the extra combats that I got from, like, dying to a boss and then trying it again. Mm-hmm. Which I just think it's really excellently designed in that way. It always feels like you have forward momentum.
And we talked a little bit about the game. We've talked about the gameplay, right? I guess we talked about the general, but how do you think the gameplay compares to Undertale?
Okay, so that's a very open-ended question, so I have to think about what kind of...
We're not going to get into the narrative yet.
Yeah. I think that I am a specific type of sicko when it comes to video games. You've seen some of the types of games that I play. Normal people do not and probably should not play them. For me, I just love numbers. And I love a crunchy RPG and stuff like that. Earthbound is a lot closer to the type of game that I would normally play, I think.
I mean,
Undertale and
you've
Deltarune
gotten
are
Slay the
both pretty...
Spire 2 fever more than any of the rest of us
Yeah.
on the panel, I think.
Oh yeah, I think
And Gumi
I'm
was playing Slay
close...
the Spire 2 during our previous recording session.
Yeah, I'm closing in on getting an Ascension 10 win on every character at this point. And it's
That's
like, you know,
fucking
I
crazy.
play lots of Crawl, which is like, if you want to talk about games for insane people, that is nothing normal happens in that game. But like, I don't know, I'm into a lot of kind of dry dick RPG, number go up, number go down type games. And I don't play very many like shooting games or uh, bullet hells, shmups, whatever we're calling them. I think like the one that I really like is like Omega Boost or whatever. So Undertale is like a step outside of my comfort zone, but in some ways I think that works in its favor. It How do I put this? It's like there are other ways also where Undertale is taking me out of my comfort zone in the kind of thing it's presenting to me. So it just feels natural to me, I guess.
Mm-hmm. And
yeah.
thinking about the gameplay as well, and I've should we bring in Mother 3 now, or should we wait till later to talk about Mother 3?
I think that now might make the most sense because I just haven't played that much of it, and I really don't know that much about it. I didn't even know that it was a Game Boy Advance game until I started playing it.
Uh-huh.
I didn't know. I also didn't know it came out 12 years after Mother 2.
Yes, it's true. And I've talked a little bit about Mother 3 already on this podcast, where I think I had a pretty hot take of saying that I didn't love it.
I haven't loved what I've played so far either.
Yeah, I thought, I mean, I love, obviously the music continues to be excellent. I do think it has a really interesting tone, but overall, I really bounced off the combat, partially because it doesn't work so well in an emulator, and so I'm not, like, holding that too hard against the game. I know that that's tough, but...
I've never been a fan of the type of mechanic that it's using for the combat, though, and I think that, for me, truly one of the biggest knocks against it is if you're doing the combat well, you can't hear the music.
That's true, yeah.
The game has a rhythm mechanic where if you do a basic attack, you can up to 16 times afterwards hit the button on the beat, and it will do a bunch of extra attacks that make a really loud noise that drowns out the battle theme.
It's the shadow guys. The shadow guys start yelling at you.
Yeah, no, it literally is like every time you like do a fucking baseball bat swing, or I guess hit him with a stick in that game, the shadow guys all come up around you and start having a conversation, and you're like, shit, man, I was trying to play a video game.
And then, like, I don't want to harp on this too bad, because it's like, I'm sure you get it already if you listen to this podcast, or you don't get it and you're going to be mad in the comments, but, like, it is racist, and I just didn't think it was good enough to justify how racist it is.
Yeah, no. Like, there is some stuff that, like, veers toward racial caricature in, like, Mother 2, but it's way lower key, and also I think it benefits from having, like, a slightly lower level of fidelity, where I'm not, like, staring at the character sprites and being like, you really made him look like that, huh?
Yeah. And, I wasn't as bothered about the sort of the drag caricatures. I don't think that that's transphobic. I think it's like drag. I think it's a different thing. Like, that didn't bother me as much, even though the name of those characters is also racist. So there's another problem there.
Yeah. Yeah. I could certainly believe that I'll get to like the later chapters of that game and be wowed by it, but it definitely does not make a strong first impression.
Yeah.
And
I
sometimes playing it, I wondered, like, is this why they're not so keen on putting out an official localization? Like,
I think it would be really tough. I think they'd have to.
It'd be awfully rough if you put this out in English, like, for the first time officially, and a bunch of people play it for the first time, and they go, oh, it's, like, not that good and also really problematic.
Yeah, I think it would be a big challenge, and again, I'm not saying it's a bad game. I'm just saying there's a couple reasons why it's not completely for me. I
have another thought about it, like
yeah.
the last of my thoughts about it, I think, which is that I talked about that that impulse, I think, that is so natural for any artist to get playing Mother 2 to be like, oh, this is like so, like they're nailing it, but it's just so sparing, and you could make something so maximalist, so directed, have such like lavish cutscenes and characters and like stuff like that. And Mother 3 is that game, and I don't think it makes it better. Like I don't know, like sometimes art that is a little bit more raw, it's one of the reasons it's good.
Yeah, absolutely. And I haven't played Mother 1 or whatever they called it in the official English release that came out recently, but you know, there are parts of that are super affecting in how stripped down that they are, and you know, the stuff about the stuff that appears to have inspired the Forgotten Man in that game is awesome. But before I put aside Mother 3, I do want to talk a little bit about, because obviously the only way that we've played Mother 3, the only way that Toby played Mother 3 prior to learning Japanese was through the unofficial fan translation patch, right? And there has been some discussion about fan translation in the Deltarune community recently. You know,
I did actually hear about this, despite being very offline.
Yes, well, it got so intense that even Mr. Offline himself, Toby Fox, made a statement about it, which was that, you know, some fans that speak Spanish and Portuguese got started basically agitating for an official translation, and part of it was in response to the Undertale orchestra tour that we've talked about on this show not having any stops in Latin America, which sucks, but is definitely 100% outside of Toby Fox's control. And I do want to actually put a pin in this. I want to talk about it for a sec, because a lot of people think about tours, you know, musical tours. Most bands, you know, they're all going from place to place. They're touring, right? You know, the members of the band are physically getting on an airplane and going between everywhere. With orchestra tours, right, where either an artist is playing with an orchestra, or, you know, you're taking like a video game soundtrack or a movie soundtrack on the road like this, it's not so simple. It relies on contracting and agreements, usually arranged by an experienced company in these matters, with existing local orchestras. So when you're going to the Undertale Symphony here in Seattle, and you're seeing me in the lobby running directly at you at 20 miles per hour, you are not going to see a performance of the same musicians that are going to be at the performance in Boston, right? Because it's the Seattle Symphony in Seattle, it's the Boston Symphony in Boston. And so generally these tours, they can only go to places that have orchestras, local orchestras that are plugged into this like robust international touring infrastructure. And so I don't know how much, obviously I don't think Fangamer has been super plugged in to the, you know, to having those connections yet, and hopefully they do in the future, but I think it's way out of Toby's hands whether that's the case. And then talking about the translation, you know, I really admire the insistence on saying, I don't want to translate my game into a language that I don't speak, because it's, I mean, first off, it's, you know, I think it's a personal work of art, and you can do whatever you can do or not do whatever you want with it when you make a work of art. You're under, and I think it's a consumerist, you know, brained affliction to suggest that somebody has to release something in the way that you want. There's
a lot of stuff that I'm interested in that I'm just like, I mean, if I was that interested, I'd go learn the language, right?
Exactly.
Like...
there's a bunch of indie games that I can't play on Mac, and I'm a Mac user, and it doesn't mean that but I know also that's a huge money losing proposition for small indies, and so I get why most games don't come out for Mac. But also there you can just make a fan translation. I think that's beautiful. That's how Toby started out ROM hacking, playing Mother 3 through a fan translation. It's an invitation to roll up your sleeves and make something, right? And, make your own interpretation of it. And I think that's beautiful. And another thing, too, is Deltarune's an ongoing work. And so if you're not intensely supervising the localization, the exact meaning of things really matters because it's so sparse, as we were talking about, because there's so much economy of language,
and especially with this audience who will scrutinize every translation.
Absolutely. And so we already do closed text reading of the differences between the English and the Japanese translations to inform our understanding, to help our theorization, right, as to where things are going. And if you're not closely supervising, if the situation, the story, then you're going to be giving wrong information to go base theories off of, right? You're going to have stuff in a localization that gets contradicted by future chapters, and that's just exponentially increasing the work. So I think it's entirely appropriate to say, I want to wait for this to be finished before we go back and add more languages to it, because already releasing in 2 languages is increasing development time significantly. But it is mad cool that it's releasing in 2 languages, because we get to do this like Talmudic analysis thing where we're looking at different translations for insight.
And I think that the artistic practice of the fan translation can connect to a topic that is related to Earthbound, related to one of the most notable things about Earthbound, specifically the music of Earthbound.
Yes, absolutely.
Because one of the most interesting things that I learned reading some old interviews related to this game has to do with where all the reggae influence on the game came from. Because again, I heard, oh yeah, Earthbound, it's got this like awesome soundtrack, and I'm not trashing video game music. There's a lot of it that I really like, but when people say, oh, a video game has an awesome soundtrack, I don't listen, because people that listen to a lot of video game music often that's their sphere of taste, so they can't judge outside of it.
Yep.
And then I played Earthbound, and I was like, what the fuck, dude? I could have been listening to this shit this whole time.
Yeah, it's a video game soundtrack made by people who listen to real music.
Yes, it is. And in particular, I'm so interested in the stuff being said in this interview about where all of the reggae influence on the game comes from, which just has to do with the fact that reggae enters Japan in kind of an underground way, and it proliferates through remixes, and specifically through dub, which is it's like a reggae offshoot with lyrics taken out of it, essentially. And it's a song hits Japan, and it's a small hit somewhere, and it's 3 days later a new version of that song is circulating somewhere else, repeat ad infinitum until you have 20 different remixes of it. Yeah. So it proliferates really rapidly through the pirate scene, and that influence gets that kind of sound into Earthbound, which is awesome because I love reggae.
There's also a lot of classic rock in there too. Obviously Beatles. Actually, one of my favorite little bits of trivia about Earthbound is that there's a Beach Boys sample in Undertale by virtue of coming through Earthbound. So there's the cave in the Cave of the Past. There's a song that samples the chorus of Deidre by the Beach Boys, and that actually becomes the main instrument of the Amalgam, the Song of the Battles track Amalgam in the True Lab in Undertale. And so that banger track in Undertale actually has a sample of one of my favorite bands of the Beach Boys in it, because it samples a sample.
I've got the interview open here. They're specifically also shouting out Stackridge as a a band, they say, emits the fragrance of the Beatles.
That's a good one.
Yeah, it's great, right? They're shouting out like Randy Newman, Brian Wilson, Weather Report, Return to Forever featuring Chick Corea, which, am I remembering right? That really good band was also part of Chick Corea's like project to spread Scientology to other musicians.
Was Chick Corea a Scientologist? That's gonna be so depressing to me.
Am I thinking of the right guy?
Oh god, he wasn't he?
Yeah,
oh,
sorry. I'm sorry. Sorry, this is how you find out because his music's awesome, right?
Oh,
like...
that's horrible. That's just awful because that's wow.
Yeah, right? Yeah, no, like I'm pretty sure that like specifically Return to Forever, like part of the idea was like working with these other musicians and spreading Scientology to them. And as a nice byproduct of that, we got some really, really good music.
You mentioned heavy weather, and in the spirit of me oversharing on the podcast, I'm going to say that the first and only time I ever took LSD, I played. I thought, oh, this is going to be great. I'm going to listen to Heavy Weather, the album by Weather Report. And then I had a nightmare trip from hell. I had serotonin syndrome or something. Like it was just
you were like on SSRIs at the time, right? Like,
yes, bad idea. Hey, chat. Hey, listeners that are probably mostly people who don't do drugs, which is good and fine. If you take an SSRI, don't do LSD.
Don't do LSD because it will suck. Don't do mushrooms because nothing will happen. Like,
yeah, really, really bad idea. And even though I don't take an SSRI anymore, I'm not gonna do LSD again. But yeah, and so I couldn't listen to that album for a little while, even though it's one of my favorites, because I was like, it just reminds me of throwing up.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, and they like. Frank Zappa also is one of the influences that they shout out, which is interesting to me because this is like a kid's adventure story, right? But also it feels to me like the psychedelic band movie of like the mid 60s to the mid 80s feels like it has such a strong influence over this game. I say that so confidently, and now I'm going to name some movies that I probably haven't seen since I was 6 because I was watching them over my dad's shoulder, but like Yellow Submarine or 200 Motels, that kind of shit. Like,
yeah, and of course Blues Brothers, also huge.
The Blues Brothers. Why are the Blues Brothers here? The fact
Why not?
Why
should the Blues Brothers should be in more games?
I guess so. The fucking Blue Brothers, because they're blue. Because people are blue in this game.
For an amazing reason.
For an amazing reason, and that sort of connects to this feeling that I had about the game. If we're gonna like go sort of towards the story aspect of it, aside from just closing out on the music, saying it is like one of the most wildly experimental soundtracks I've ever heard. Like the music in this game is experimental for music, not just for video game soundtracks. Like they were trying some absolutely wild shit on this one.
Yeah.
But yeah, the psychedelia of the like mid 60s through mid 80s was on my mind constantly through this game, because there is a degree to which, if I wanted to summarize the vibe of Earthbound, how I would put it is, okay, Weird Japan, that like sort of racist like American impression of like all of the weirdness of Japan?
Yeah.
It's like Japan doing that to weird America, but in a way that is like razor sharp, like hitting every like mortal point with deadly precision. Like the vibe of this world is like shot through with like hippies, cults, aliens, ESP, self-help books, celebrity worship, pointless technology, police corruption, like all the shit that was like front of mind for like weird countercultural America throughout those decades that would have made its way into the art that presumably influenced these creators. And I'm like,
and also a lot of that stuff ended up making its way to Japan as well. Like you know that
yeah. I mean, I was just watching Masayuki Takanaka and Santana. They like played a concert together, and if you haven't seen that, go watch it. It fucking whips up and down the goddamn street.
And I actually I just finished reading the book Underground by Hikaru Murakami, which is a series of just you just mentioned like self-help groups and like weird new religious movements, and it made me think about I just finished reading a book of interviews with people who were in the Tokyo subway at the time of the Shinriko sarin gas attack. Really interesting, really interesting book, partially because it was intentionally designed to be interviews with normal people to talk about this imposition on their normal lives, and instead of like othering it or treating as this like strange thing that was external to everyday life in Japan, like trying to understand how everyday life in Japan could produce a result like this by talking to the regular people first, before talking about at all. And I just think about that too, because a lot of that does feel sort of downstream of like Scientology and American, especially like Californian weirdness.
Oh, dude, California is such a fucked up place. I get to say this. I grew up there. California is fucking weird. Man, yeah. Also, just on like the vibe of the game, when Earthbound takes a turn to horror, it is really sharp. Like it's very sudden and it hits really nasty. It's like a quirky adventure for about 80 to 90% of the game, and like the rest of it is a horror game, and it is awful. I was like really truly shocked by that. The tone of it, like the things that are happening are so like I'm assuming I can talk about the end of Earthbound on the episode about Earthbound, but like
if you've made it this far and you're like, oh boy, I'm so glad they haven't talked about spoilers yet. Okay, that's congrats. You've made it through there's 40 minutes, and now you can go play the game. But yes, you can go ahead and talk about it.
Yeah, the shit where they're taking all of the kids' souls out of their bodies to put them into robots to send a billion years into the past to fight the ultimate evil, with the knowledge that their souls may be stranded like a billion years ago, leaving their bodies comatose and them trapped forever out of time. And then you like are in fucking Gygas's realm, and it's like you step out of Earthbound and into Fear and fucking Hunger. That shit was so like not on my radar throughout the rest of the game. It is like, I don't know, man. That shit would affect you. You played that as a kid.
And it's also, I think that is very paralleled in Undertale, right? Where Undertale really takes a massive, massive tonal shift as soon as you skip off the rails of the neutral route and into either other ending, but especially into like True Lab and Flowey, and the fighting through the straight up horror section.
Yeah, it's real fucking good stuff. And I mean, also talking about other games that are like heavily influenced by Earthbound, I played through most of Yume Nikki before I started Earthbound, and then I got to Moonside, which again, I didn't know anything about Earthbound. It's really shocking that I was never spoiled on the existence of this part of the game. I stepped into Moonside and I was like, oh, I just saw the entire development history of Yume Nikki like explode out of my mind in a shower of electricity, because of course a game like that would be made after something like this. It's so one of the most like aesthetically striking things I've ever seen in a video game. I don't know, like they were cooking. To describe it to anyone who hasn't played Earthbound, it's just like you're in Fourside, one of the cities of the first half of the game. The game is kind of split between the first half gathering the party on like a trek across America, and then the second half is like a globe-trotting adventure. Fourside is the last of those cities, and you can find like a secret thing in a cafe. You like go behind the counter or something, and you go to Moonside, which is like a weirdo, like bizarro world.
It's like some kind of dark world.
Yeah, like some kind of fucking dark world, right? Where like the shit is like everything is weird. Space doesn't make sense. People are saying bizarre things to you constantly. There is an invisible man following you around who sometimes talks to you, but you never see. Like, it is one of my favorite things I've ever seen in a video game. It's so fucking cool.
And let's move and let's talk about narrative now. Because that's the thing that's the most influential on games from Earthbound, right? And so experiencing it with fresh eyes in 2026, what was that like?
I was both surprised at how like non-narrativized it felt, sort of, if that makes sense. Like there are so many extremely like writing heavy games that were very inspired by and influenced by this game, and I was kind of expecting it to be like those, and it's like it kind of is, but it's more so that the writing that it does have is almost always like hitting really hard, either in terms of like humor, like the game is extremely funny, or just like every now and then it just like drops like something that hits me in the fucking heart. Especially stuff related to Ness, who is a character who in some ways doesn't get that much explicit characterization, but you can surmise so much about him just from like gameplay. Like one of my favorite things about Ness is that he has psychic abilities that can hurt enemies, and they're very inefficient. It uses a lot of his like psychic focus to do that, but it doesn't use a lot of his psychic focus to heal his friends. He's reluctant to hurt and eager to help, which I think is just adorable.
And it's interesting too, because that is sort of inverted by Susie over the course of chapter 4, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I love also that like Ness, like by the end of that game, it will be like Ness has like 750 HP or something, and then like the next healthiest party member will have like 300 HP. He's like the biggest and strongest kid, looking out for all of these smaller like he's like a sports type looking out for all the nerd types. And I also think it's very cute to think of him as like a 13-year-old wrangling a bunch of like 10 to 12-year-olds. I don't know, like all of this stuff comes through really well in spite of how very little like he is being written. You pick up a lot about him from stuff his family has to say about him, and like there are two key pieces of characterization for Ness that I inform a lot about the character to me, and also make me think a lot about stuff that makes its way to Kris, which is at the end of the Seventh Sanctuary, you get to read Ness's thoughts a little bit, and what he is expressing is basically really like serious worry about the future. Like he's thinking, what is happening to us on this adventure, and he doesn't like it. Mm-hmm. And then in Magic Hand, the area of the game that is inside his mind, you meet his impression of his younger self, like at the start of his adventure, and that character does not have a lot of lines. He does act like a cartoon funny guy idiot, and it's like, oh, is this what he thinks of himself? And it hurts.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. As a story, it's like, I think that you can make it sound very simple. The kids get together on their trip around America, and then they go around the world getting a bunch of pieces of this song that will like unlock Ness's psychic potential or whatever. And then they use the phase distorter to travel back in time to fight Gygus, who is accompanied by Ness's shithead neighbor, who's just been like trolling you through the whole story, basically, who says a bunch of stuff about like how Gygus's anger and hatred has consumed him so thoroughly he no longer has a mind, or something along those lines. Um, while he is being represented by like Ness's face.
Mm-hmm.
And in the end, you defeat Gygus not by beating the shit out of him, but through Paula praying a bunch, and through all of the people that they meet along their adventures praying with her, including you, the player. Which I thought was very sweet and adorable.
Yeah.
And I also found... Sorry, you first.
No, and I was going to say, and it does bring in, I mean, I feel like the diegetic player elements of Deltarune may be in conversation with that. Although, of course, one of our lines on this podcast is that those are more ambiguous than many people think.
Yeah. But yeah, I find the fact that it, like, throughout the game, up to that point, in a way, like, magic, psychic powers, prayer, and, like, sci-fi technology are kind of being treated as, like, roughly interchangeable. It's all just kind of, like, superpowers.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you refill the resource that lets you use your psychic powers with, like, magic pudding or whatever. And it's like, well, I guess magic and psychic powers are just kind of the same. But then at the end of the game, it's like no, like the prayer and the connection to the people that you've met on your journey, that is the thing that stands apart from the others and can defeat Gygus. Mm-hmm. I found that interesting. Yeah.
And what do you? So you talked about the Ness's, the self-doubt being, reflected in Kris. I'm also interested in sort of the way that to find out who Frisk is in Undertale, you sort of have to read between the lines as well, right? And you have to see you have to read through other characters' reactions and the limited bits of insight you get. And so I've always thought, there's a lot of overlap between Ness and Frisk in that way too.
Yeah, definitely. I think that in a lot of ways, Kris is a much more directly characterized character.
Yes, absolutely. Like Kris is like a subversion almost of the the voiceless protagonist, right? They're a character that's always almost struggling to show a voice, right? That is that.
Yeah, they're not voiceless. It's that the voice they want to use, it takes so much for it to come out of them.
Yeah. And, like, you're inclined as the player to treat them as a player avatar or as an analog or as sort of a neutral protagonist. And then over the course of this game, intensifying as the game goes on, you're really discovering that you're actually, like, Disco Elysium style, like, actually stepping into into a person's life, right? And that's actually been irrevocably shaped by the decisions that the character, made prior to you, the player, being able to make any decisions at all.
Yeah, which is why I've got to do that fascist playthrough of Disco Elysium to talk about it in relation to the Weird Route.
That would be one hell of an episode. That's a really interesting concept, actually. Now that you mentioned that, that's really interesting.
I've been thinking about it since chapter 3 and 4 came out. I've just been playing other games.
And yeah, that's fair. Well, there's a lot of games happening right now. As a thought, so are there any other things that as you were playing, you were like, you found interesting in a sort of Undertale Deltarune context?
I'm sure there were so many, and I didn't write down enough of them. I guess a thing that struck me is that in some ways, I think that Deltarune feels more Earthbound-like than Undertale does. In the sense that Deltarune is like... it's teens, it's not kids, but it's like a party of teens and their grand adventure. Like, Undertale is a lost child in a strange world. It's two very different vibes to it,
Yeah.
and especially the way that Deltarune is like engaging really directly with like the weirdness of a certain part of America. That is like very Earthbound, and it's definitely not present in that way in Undertale.
Yeah.
Um,
Undertale is very, I think, deliberately like nationless.
yeah,
It doesn't,
which
it
it
doesn't.
really wouldn't work if it wasn't. I don't think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um,
Whereas it's really conspicuous how much Deltarune takes place in America, in my opinion, anyway.
yeah, I've been
Um,
told it's New Hampshire. I can't. I've never been on the East Coast, so I couldn't tell you.
yeah, and one of the things that I was thinking about was it's pretty clear, that you're not killing in Earthbound, right? When you get like a little funny message when you beat an enemy that's like some way that they were defeated that didn't involve killing them.
Yeah, like the animals were tamed or people went back to normal because a big part of it is like your enemies are like animals that are freaking out because of Gygas's influence, or like people that are getting weird because of cults, or zombies. It doesn't even say that you kill the zombies. It says like they return to the dust of the earth or something like that. And that continues on into like Deltarune as well, as like a parallel between them of like Deltarune has like a funny thing for when you do violence. And I mean, you still end up playing, I think, a pretty sad version of the game in comparison if you're always violent in Deltarune, but it's the same vibe sort of like, this is not I don't know, a murder simulator.
Yeah.
Which, no shade on murder simulators, I've played and enjoyed plenty of them. um yeah, Earthbound is a game that makes me want to make art when I play it. If I had to make like a single totalizing statement about it, it would be that.
I mean,
it makes me want to perform music again. It makes me want to like write stories.
And you're certainly not the only. I mean, it's like that old, cliche about the Velvet Underground, that it didn't, that their album didn't sell a lot of copies, but everyone who bought one started their own band. Like that happened with Earthbound, right? That, like Earthbound is like the origin point for the modern indie RPG.
Yeah. And which is like, I don't know, it's like a thing that gets disparaged about some of those games almost now. And I'm like, fucking, I don't know though, but like, have you played it?
Yeah.
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
Like,
well, thank you so much thanks for coming on and sort of bringing me back into the world of Earthbound. I will definitely replay it before the new chapter comes out. And I've certainly have been listening to the soundtrack quite a bit over the weeks. Are there any sort of closing thoughts that you have before we head out?
People should actually play Earthbound, probably. Like, it's not just a cultural curiosity that so many artists were inspired by this thing. Like, it's fucking good.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, no, sorry. These notes are so disorganized because I've been so like busy with other studying and reading and shit, and didn't get them anywhere near like the level of organized that they were for the last couple episodes that we did. But one thing that I wanted to point out about Earthbound's relationship to Deltarune, I knew it was the thing that I was forgetting when you asked earlier. I'm so fascinated by the fact that in the like post final boss ending of Earthbound, something that does keep happening is characters refer to Paula as Ness's new girlfriend. And in fact, you can take her to Ness's like house to meet his family, and she'll be like too shy to go in, and you can like tell her, no, come in with me. And I find it so fascinating that I feel like some of the heteronormativity of the Weird Route like comes through there, and yet the way that it is executed in Earthbound is so like sweet in such a sincere way, that it comes across totally differently, and I found that super interesting about the way that game ends.
That is interesting.
I don't like.
Do you think there's more parallels between Paula and Noelle?
I mean, the fact that you're going to spend most of the game with Paula blasting like enemies with super strong ice magic, which is like the strongest thing that she has available to her. I would say that yes, that is a parallel of a sort.
Well, that's something to keep an eye on for sure as we look ahead to future chapters.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody, I think, thought, oh, we're just going to keep having, because we didn't end up getting, we kind of got subverted where we didn't end up getting Noelle back in the party yet. But you have to assume, because it's literally in the game, that it's going to happen again, at some point. We don't do a lot of speculation on the show, but to close out this episode, what do you think is, like, do you think that Chapter 5 is going to be, like, the big Weird Root explosion?
It sure seems poised to be. I think I've told you exactly my, like, if I'm pointing to the stands saying how I think it's going to go, I think that we've talked about this before, but the way that it's been set up sure sounds like whatever awful thing is going on between these two is going to blow up somehow in a very public setting at the festival.
Yeah.
That's what it seems like it's leading up to me. Like,
I'm so scared.
I'm scared too.
We've settled into our wonderful, status quo of knowledge in chapter 3 and 4, and it's like, oh god, our whole apple cart's about to get appended.
I have to finish this thing that I'm writing before chapter 5 flips the table.
Yeah. We're gonna have to learn new things. We'll.
Oh no!
Oh no!
Hang on. First song part 2 has a great little lyric about this. I know that it's a little dramatic, but the word for not changing is death, and so unfortunately we will have to keep living.
And that's a great statement to end the episode on. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. I'm glad this was not a complete shit show. Maybe like a medium level shit show.
Nah. See you in the outro, everybody. And that's the show. Outro music's by Highwell, our official show musician. You can check a link in the description to the Black Knife vocal breakcore remix that debuted on this show 2 episodes ago. In the description there, you can also find the link to the Discord, and you can follow the show on Blue Sky there as well. You can listen to this podcast right here on groupofshrike.net, on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, on YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts with RSS. Thanks again for listening. See you in 2 weeks, everybody.
Shrike Amalgamated General Productions GmbH